Good morning. Good morning. Happy Father's Day for tomorrow. I want to mention the restrooms are just across to the left, and there's a cafeteria to the right with machines if you need to get something to drink during the break. CraigDietrect, who is from Jupiter, Florida, learned to scuba dive when he was in his 20s and always had the desire to express himself artistically. The first time he picked up a camera, he knew it was a perfect outlet for his creativity. After serving our country as a naval photographer during both Desert Storm and Desert Shield, he owned his own successful family and child photography business. Later, after becoming a scuba instructor, he put his two greatest loves together and ventured into the world of underwater photography, where he now makes his living selling his art and teaching underwater photography through expositions and private instructions. I want to thank Peggy Farron for making arrangements for Craig's presentation here today. And also there'll be, don't leave at the end because we have two $50 door prizes from Hunt Photography. So after the presentation is all over, we'll call out the door prizes. So let's give Craig a big dippy sig welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. If you can't hear me, let me know, but this is my normal voice, so I'm just going to not use the microphone if that's okay with everybody. So you got a little bit of my background. I'm just going to go into it a little bit more. In high school, I'd already started photography and was already knee-deep into it. It's actually what really pulled me through school. And then I did want to join the Navy so I could travel and shoot and have film provided for me because it was expensive back then. So I spent many hours in the darkroom. I loved photography. It was something for me that wasn't just a hobby. It was always going to be my way of life. It was very, very important to me, and that's why I love being in places like this, because if people like to talk photography, I'm your guy. You can call me anytime and I'll talk photography. It's something that I really, really love. And I'm very, very thankful to be in a position that I'm still a photographer in these days and actually making a living from it. So I am extremely thankful for that. And underwater photography is just a very, very challenging task. So in the Navy, I used to hang out of helicopters and take pictures, and I'm scared of heights. So it wasn't a perfect fit. It was like, okay, you're going to go up in a helicopter, you're going to be on this little belt that's going to have you hanging out, and I was like, yeah! And then you get up there and you're like, what the hell am I doing? So after being dragged to the door, you know, for me, it was the same thing. I didn't get certified to scuba because I was scared of the water. So I literally, you know, as a kid going down the Jersey Shore, I would put my foot in the water, and that was about as far as I wanted to go. In a lake, I wouldn't even sit on the dock and put my feet in the water because I was scared of what was going to come up and grab it. So water was not high on my priority list either. And then I got scuba certified, and from that day, everything changed for me. And literally, it just opened up my whole life to realizing that there's a whole world that's you know, that we haven't explored, and for me it was just like this gateway to just see things that I never thought were even possible to see. And then from there I've just been very, very lucky to, as he said, combine the two and be a photographer and be a scuba diver. And I've seen some of the most amazing things, and I'm hoping I'm still just getting started because there's still a lot to get out there and see. But for me, when I'm shooting, as you look at my work here, I was a portrait photographer for 18 years. So you are going to see, I kind of, you know, my mindset is to present to you these animals, creatures, and I try to put them in their best light. That's, as a portrait photographer, that's your job. Your job is to take your subject and make them look their best. Make them look comfortable, make them look good, get their best side. So as you see my work, I hope you can see the portraiture side of me in this work. I take it, you know, for me, it's something very serious. I just, like I said, I love each image is, you know, I put a lot of effort into them, and we're going to talk about a whole Oh, sorry. You mind hitting me? I talk too much, sorry. Just a space bar on that. Thank you.
Go to sleep.
I hope. There he is. Sorry, how they go in here. So what we're going to do, guys, is go through, we're going to talk macro first. So in underwater photography, you have macro and then you have wide angle. So we're going to go through some macro here first and talk about this. With my presentation, I can see all of you for now, or I hope we're going to shut those. There we go. I can still see you. So if you do have questions, I don't mind. So just either blurt them out or raise your hand, but I'm pretty easygoing. If you have questions, I love questions. So the whole presentation as I'm going, don't be shy about asking any questions. So let's go ahead and see some work here. So this is a red-lipped batfish. And he's adorable, isn't he? So here, what you're seeing, when you're shooting macro, I shoot a Canon 7D Mark II. So that's the camera. I shot a 7D for 4 or 5 years, and then the 7D Mark II came out, and now I'm shooting that. And you're looking at a 100mm lens. So in underwater photography, it's not like tons of lenses that you're using. My travel setup and what I usually shoot is going to be just 3 lenses. So you have a 60mm, a 100mm, and then the Tokina 10-17. And we're going to talk more about that lens in a little bit. But when you see these images here, it's only the 2 lenses. You're looking at a 60mm macro and a 100mm. So that's it. And then what you're also looking at is you're going to see, it's a one, or not that you're going to see, but the color and what brings out these natural tones that you're seeing is just one strobe. So for me, I'm bringing an external strobe under the water, and that's what's bringing out all the natural colors that you're going to see. So in macro, it's a 60-100, or you're shooting with a one strobe setup. And what's really wonderful is that you get to see, as a shooter, it just doesn't end. I mean, it's like, if you like birds, it's like being somewhere that there's 1,000 different birds for you to choose from, where you're just kind of like, oh my God, where do I start? The underwater world is it's just so fascinating, and every 10 feet there's something new, and everywhere you really take a look, if you slow down and look, there's something to see. And it's a very, as a photographer, it just gives you endless amounts of subjects to shoot. So what you're looking here is, I look for when I'm shooting, is not just the subject, but then what's the background. And that's where I think a lot of people, this is where you take your time and you try to find a great subject. But for me, I'm not only just looking for a great subject, I'm also looking for a great background to go along with it. This one here is kind of cool. This was in Alaska. So I was diving in 38-degree water to get this shot. And it is amazing. It's one of the most beautiful places. It was one of the best dive trips I've ever done. I went from Port Hardy, British Columbia, to Sitka, Alaska on a liveaboard. And a liveaboard, when I say a liveaboard, it just means you're on the boat and you're living on the boat and you're traveling as you're diving. So it's just it's a perfect way as a scuba diver. If you want to dive a lot, you go on the liveaboards and you're diving 5 times a day. So it's a wonderful opportunity to shoot. So you get these little guys, and it's just amazing, like I said, when you're able to capture the little personalities that they have. And when you look at them, it's like I said, it really, I'm trying to open your eyes to how incredible nature is. Just great colors in there, great subject matter, and it's not very easy to get these. It's a little tiny fish, so, but again, it's just waiting and letting them get comfortable and let them come to you. So this is a red Irish lord. It's kind of a cool name, if you don't mind me saying. And again, this is another cold water fish. This is actually just outside of British Columbia. And the colors on them are just really, really neat. Okay, so this guy here, only a mother can love. This it was very, if you don't mind, I'm sorry, I love to talk, so I'm going to keep going here. So this one here, I grew up, warm water diving, you have called a moray eel. And they're kind of, they're green and they're small and they're cute, sort of. Well, I'm thinking, they're saying to you, you're going to see these wolf eels. And I'm like, oh, okay, no big deal. And I'm thinking this small eel. Well, this guy, when his head came out, it was the size of a basketball. And when you're in a wetsuit, there's different things you can do than when you're in a dry suit. But I'm going to tell you, he scared me very much. And I just never saw this coming. I mean, I just was not prepared for this face to come out of this hole. It was quite amazing. But again, I was like, all right, regroup, come back, and let's get a nice picture of this guy. And they're just so cool. It looks like stone almost. And I just thought that was really, really neat. So this guy here, what was really neat was I'm literally about 2 inches away from him when I'm shooting this. And what he thinks is he's so camouflaged I can't see him. So he's totally comfortable because he thinks this guy can't see me, I'm good. And it's really neat because at one point I think he finally got the hint that I could see him. And then he flared up to let me know that that was his little way of saying, leave me alone. And I just thought when he did it, I thought that was super cool. And when you see these backdrops like this is about 90 feet down, so there's not very much light down there. So when you see the black backgrounds, that's because I'm shooting at 2/50th of a second, so very fast shutter speed, so it's not going to pick up. There's no natural light for it to really pick up, so you're going to see those dark backgrounds, and that's what's creating that black background that he can pop off of. So again, when you're seeing these colors, these are colors that are natural colors. So it's just the strobe going ahead. So we talked about maybe white balance. There's a question about white balance. I'm on auto white balance. So, because my strobe is going to it's going to do the work for me. It's going to give me really nice color. So this is your little seahorse. And so what I like to do, again, if you're shooting macro, there's a key to what you want to do is when you shoot, you want to shoot on an upward angle. A lot of people, as you scuba dive, you're actually scuba diving on, you're looking down. So a lot of people, when they photograph, they shoot down. But that really takes away from all the drama. So you really want to, when you're shooting, you actually want to position yourself and try to get yourself an angle that you're either level with or you're shooting on an upward angle. That's pretty much in the photography world, that's pretty much one of the basic rules that you really want to, I tell my students to just get that mantra in their head, shoot up, shoot up, shoot up. Just keep that in your mind when you're shooting because it's very easy to fall right back into it. And when you see a picture and you're shooting from a downward angle, it's amazing because you can be shooting any subject that's really cool, but when you're shooting down, it just takes away. And then if you get low and you shoot on that upward angle, it really takes your subject matter to a whole different place. So it's a very important, one of the most important rules to shooting for underwater. So again, with my subject matter here, I see things in my head that I want to do. On this, it's about, having him just pop off this black background. Again, for me, I'm very specific about where the background is not going to help the subject matter at all. So I'm just going to go ahead and just get rid of it in the sense of just darken it as much as I can. So that way I get the subject to just really, really pop off there. This guy, what's really neat about this piece here is this guy was a little smaller than a dime. So, and this anemone that he was in was about the size of a dime. So it was just so funny because I was having a hard time taking his picture because I was laughing, so I couldn't stop laughing because he was just so adorable. And he just had his own little anemone right to himself, and it was just about, you couldn't ask for a cuter. But I had to keep looking at him because if I looked away, I was hard to find him again because he was just so tiny. And that's why I said it's like when you're diving, a lot of people, they tend to just be on a mission where they're just cranking along, you know, and I'll see people when I scuba dive and they're just swimming along and I'm like, you're missing so much. The idea when you're scuba diving and shooting is to really take your time and really look at what's going on around you, because there's a ton of stuff. But I just see so many people miss so many great opportunities because for some reason they think the faster they're going, the more they're going to see. But I just disagree with that. So all your stuff you're seeing here, these are really small fish. And I just, like I said, I think nature is just incredible to me. You know, because again, I look at the colors in there and I look at the just the way they're designed, and it's really neat. When you look here, what I'm trying to do is just, there's about 50 of them in this, in this little shell here. And what they're doing is I wanted to shoot the one and then just blur out the other one to give you kind of an idea of how many are in there, but I wanted to focus in on one. And I just, like I said, I love the color in the eyes, and then that purple just fades as it goes through. It's really, really beautiful little fish.
What type of f-stop are you utilizing?
I'm shooting with the 100 millimeter, you know, I'm trying to work with my depth of field because there's not, you know, when you're shooting that 100 millimeter, so I'm shooting anywhere from F18 and up, mostly around F20, somewhere in there, because I'm trying to, you know, again, with that 100 millimeter, there's just not much depth of field, and when you're moving around, it's a really good question, because what you don't realize is, you know, there's a different story when you can use a tripod and you have all this ability, but when you're in a current and you're moving and you have a lens, you know, a 100 millimeter lens that you're trying to, you know, not have it move, and I need as much depth of field to help my focusing. So that's why I'm just, it's pretty much a guarantee I'm going to be anywhere from F18 and above.
What ISO?
I shoot, for me, I'm going to be right around 320. So 320 is just, you know, it's kind of a Canon thing of just like, that's a good solid ISO that I can work with. My strobe has a lot of power, so that's what I'm counting on. And you're so close to the subject so that the strobe is going to give you that power that you can shoot at F2 or 2/50th of a second and still shoot at F22 and still get, you have plenty of power on that strobe. This is here is a circle of life. I have to tell, I see some crazy stuff, and this is a nudibranch eating another nudibranch. The good news is this nudibranch has, when he gets up to those purple little spots there, that's his little stuff to let him know you're eating the wrong thing, and he actually lets him go, which is pretty cool. But I thought this was a really just a cool picture to show off, because it's something I've never seen before. So this one here is off the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, and I love this image because I love the anemone that he's in, and I love that's where he lives. And this took a lot of time. This shot is a matter of where they're kind of nervous. You're breathing underwater, so you're making a ton of noise. And they're not real comfortable with, you know, even though I'm not a very big person, that, you know, it's still big to them. So I just waited him out and just let them get comfortable, let him get used to the breathing. And then he just went right back into his anemone and just got comfortable. And I love the detail in the fins, and I love the fact that he's in his anemone, and then I just love the colors on him. I thought it was really beautiful. So these little guys, they're yellow-headed jawfish, and they actually just live in the ground. And then it's kind of adorable. You just watch them coughing out their little, the little rocks, and they make a little home for themselves, and then this is them coming out. So, and then these are the guys that actually, the males will have the eggs in their mouth, and they actually, it's pretty cool. So that's how, when the babies, or when the eggs are there, they're in the mouth of the male, and he just sits there all day with those eggs in there and keeps rolling them around so they stay. And it's really quite amazing. And this is they're probably 2.5 inches tall, so it's a very small subject matter. So again, I'm on the ground, so I can get that upward angle and make this as dramatic as it is, which is really cool. But they're just such beautiful fish, and it's really neat when you're laying there on the ground, you just see them popping up, and it's like a whole show going on, and it's really quite cool. So this is a lizardfish, and I see tons of lizardfish. And it's funny because when you see them, they don't ever move. They just sit there, and you're like, oh, okay, these things don't ever move. And I used to say to myself, like, I wonder how these guys like grow to be big lizardfish, because I never see them ever moving. Well, now I see how they move. And when they move, this fish was a big, like, bigger than him, and he was going for it. And I just thought this was really kind of neat, again, to show. You just, in my world, you just don't see this shot very often. It's very unique. And I felt uncomfortable because he was hopping around trying to get away from me, but he was trying to also get the fish. And so I just got the shot, and then I left him alone. But I thought that was really, really cool to show. I love this image. This is actually taken where I live, which is Jupiter, Florida. This is Riviera Beach. So we have this most amazing bridge called the Blue Heron Bridge. It's quite famous for underwater photographers to go. It's unbelievable. We can't describe why there's so many species under this bridge. It doesn't make any sense because they're from all over. There's things that from the South Pacific, there's things there from all over, and it's incredible. And it's in 20 feet of water. So you can go, slap on a tank and you can get an hour and a half, 2-hour dive out of there, and you'll see octopus, you'll see red-lip batfish, you're going to see flying gurnards, you're going to see seahorses, you're going to see octopuses, you're going to see all these incredible things, all in this one little area in Riviera Beach. So it's really incredible. And if you ever get certified, the Blue Heron Bridge is the perfect way to go get started, because I tell people, I joke with them and say, if you're uncomfortable, just stand up, because it's for most people they can stand up. But it's very shallow, and it's also quite sad because it's a state park. So you have this battle going on about, nobody wants to take care of it, which is very, very sad. It's really quite sad because they fish there. There's people going there now, and they work at the fish stores and stuff. What I mean is they're just taking all these things because nobody's telling them they can't do it. So the town doesn't want to nobody wants to spend money. The town says it's the state's, and then the state says it's the town. So nobody actually wants to protect this, and we're trying very, very hard to make it part of the agenda to get some sort of protection, because you'll be there and you'll see this beautiful fish, and then 5 minutes later you'll see the guy walking in the parking lot with his little plastic bag with that same fish walking away with it. And it's quite sad because, like I said, it's one of these. There are people that have been in the diving world who do the fish ID books, and they go all over the world, and they say to them, this is the best shore dive they've ever done. And that means in their whole career, this is the best shore dive that they've ever seen. So it's a pretty incredible place, and just wanted to, in case anybody's certified, it's a great, wonderful place to go visit. This here is my little yellow boxfish, and this was taken in Australia also. And this guy he's a little smaller than a golf ball, so he's a very, very small subject matter. And what I'm doing here is I'm just literally just to not move. So I see him coming down the reef, I just sit and just wait and hope he's going to come across my path. And as he came across my path, I took a shot like this. He saw the flash go off, he turned and looked at me. I took another shot, this one, and then he swam away and was gone. So I always joke when I talk to people or I show them this image, if you see the two, it looks like a mug shot because he's like this, and then he turns and he's like this, and it's just, those are the only two images. But, I try to tell my students that you have to go for it. You have to not chase down the subject matter. And this is one of the most important things I try to express to people is, I took a chance. So I saw him coming, and he could have swam 10 different ways. But the idea was, as soon as you become the aggressor and you try to go after the subject matter, once they feel scared, it's over. You're not going to swim down this fish. He's going to go away, and you're never going to get the shot. And so the idea is, for me, I will take the chance of just sitting and hoping he's going to come across this small little window that I have. And for me, I'm willing to sacrifice him swimming a different way and just not getting the shot. But I feel like if you take the chance and it pays off, it really pays off. And then you get, and I have a very, very high success rate in the sense of, you know, taking those chances and then paying off as opposed to trying to go and be more aggressive and go after the subject. I love it. We call this pucker up. This is one of my favorite pieces. In my art world, I do a pucker up collection, and I do this piece in like an Andy Warhol throwback. So I do it in a yellow, which is the original color, and then I do it in a red, a blue, and a green. And it's really adorable, and it's a great collection. And I had a client that we just did this pucker up collection, but he did 4 48 by 48s, and it was just one of the. As an artist, it's cool to see your work really come alive like that, and it was the centerpiece to his home, and I thought that was, and you can understand, that's 4 foot by 4 foot of each piece, so you can understand the home I was in. It was pretty cool to be a part of that. This here is my original piece. So this is called Little Beauty, and she's my first photograph that I took underwater that I really cared about. And so she is what got me started in this career. She was a fish that I was 65 feet down, and I literally had almost no air. She made me wait 38 minutes before she would come out and say hello to me. And when she finally did, she just gave me the perfect little look, and I got the one image, and then I had to go up because my dive was over. And when I looked at the image, I had already seen it in my head of exactly how I wanted it to be. And when I was able to produce it exactly the way I wanted it to be, I was hooked with the challenge that was in front of me to become an underwater photographer. And it just really hit me hard. And then I thought this was going to be a private image for myself, and I thought I would be the only one that would really like it. And as I got into the art world and I presented this as one of my pieces, the response was incredible, and I was extremely thankful that other people see this as a beautiful image, and I'm really proud of it. She shot off center on purpose, and when I do it as a 20 by 40, so 20 tall, 40 long, and then she's just in the early stage of the piece, and then there's tons of black so that she just floats in there, and it's a really beautiful piece, and I'm really proud of this image. I really love it, and I'm glad that it was something that got me hooked on what I'm about to show you. So as you notice, I love color. Color is it's really cool to me. But I love this fish. It actually doesn't have much color to it, so I did do it into a black and white, and I thought it just couldn't have called more for a black and white. When I shoot black and whites, or if you see a black and white, it is shot in color, and then I'm taking it down. I only work in Lightroom. It's the only post-processing I do. I don't really do a lot of post-processing. I do more so where I shoot in the camera the way I want it to be, and then in Lightroom, I do some minor changes here and there. I'm going to add a little clarity, a little contrast, and I want to show the viewer my details. And then if I look at an image and I really feel strongly about it, again, I grew up on film, so black and white was really, part of my world. So there's certain images that I really love in black and white, and that's just while I'm looking at it, I just feel like it's screaming black and white. And this is one of them that I thought was really cool. So these guys are nudibranchs, so they're just slugs underwater, but boy, they have such beautiful colors. It's really kind of neat. That's a Spanish shoal, that's called, and just the purples on them, and it's just really, really neat. That's a lizardfish. Without the fish in his mouth. That's him just sitting. These guys are really, really neat. It's see them coming because they always are just in these schools. And they're really, really small, but there's usually so many of them that you just see this like shadow coming, and they just are moving, and it's incredible because they're just sitting there just constantly moving, but it's so adorable because you just, like I said, as they go, it's just like this shadow that you see, and it's really, really kind of neat. And it was kind of hard to get the shot because they're just constantly moving. So again, I had to set up and hope they were coming right over this ledge here that I thought they were going to come, and sure enough, they came cruising right by me, and I just thought this was really neat. Again, really, just the fish are maybe 2 inches long, and that's it. Yeah, these guys are just like, you would think, you know, people don't believe in aliens, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Look at this right here. How could you not put him in the alien world? I mean, look at those little antennas he's got and everything. I mean, it's really neat. So this shot here is, I love this because, again, I love the background. To me, this little tiny fish is sitting in his throne, and he's overlooking over at the ocean. I always use this when I talk to when I'm teaching. I use this as a shot to show where you want to take your subjects, and as I told you about shooting up, you want to put them on their throne. You want to shoot up and make them look special. And I just love this fish. Is again it's just a tiny little fish, but I thought it was so neat how he was just sitting there, and I just really looked at it as like he was sitting on his throne looking out over the ocean. Okay. Is everybody good? Okay, so now things are going to change up. We're going to go into the other side of underwater photography, and this is really where now you're going to see the good stuff. This is where I just fell in love with wide angle. So when you shoot wide, everything's different than macro. And what I mean is, now you're going to go back to the lens I talked about, which is the Tokina 10-17. The Tokina 10-17 is just the perfect underwater lens. I don't think they designed it as that, but it ended up being that for a crop sensor camera, you could not find a better wide-angle camera for underwater photography. So when I'm shooting in a fisheye. So at 10, I'm at a fisheye. So my angle of coverage is 180 degrees. At 17, I'm going to cut that down to about 110 degrees. You're going to see my work, 98% of it is at 10, which is 180 degree angle of coverage. Okay? So what does that mean? That means I have to get very close to my subjects. And what that means is when you're shooting macro, you really just don't, it's inherent that you're going to get close to your subject. When you shoot wide angle, it's a little different when you understand I have to be 2 to 3 feet away from every subject that you're going to see. So, and when I say 2 to 3 feet, I mean you have to be 2 to 3 feet. So it's, 1, 2. So when you look, I'm here and that's my subject. That's the range you have to be in. So you have to be extremely close, and that's why I'm shooting at the 180 degrees, so I can fill the frame with my subject matter with still being so close. What's going to happen by doing that is now I have a 2-strobe setup. So I have 2 strobes that are going to light the subject matter. I have to get close to the subject because you have, in the water column, you have all these little particles. And it doesn't matter where you go. So if you're traveling, you have beautiful visibility, you still have particles in the water. And what those particles will do, it's like photographing in the rain. If you were to photograph in the rain, if you were to try to shoot, it would be very distorted. You're going to lose contrast, you're going to lose clarity, and the images aren't going to pop. So it's extremely, as we go into rules, rule number 2 is to get close to your subject. And rule number 3 is, when you think you're close to your subject, get closer. Because you're probably not close where you need to be. And this is the hard part of underwater photography wide angle. It's a whole different world because you have to get close, and then your strobes, even though your strobes are very powerful, they still get diffused as they go through the water. So they only will work about 2 to 3 feet away from your subject. So everything you see here, this is a wide angle setup. He's got, and by the way, I always show this one. This is not me, and I can tell you why. This setup is probably like a $25,000 setup. I kind of laugh at this because this is the ultimate. These are made in Austria, and they're handmade from a father and son that make this housing, and it's a very, very expensive setup. It's an understatement. The housing alone, without the camera, is probably $8,000 to $10,000 just for the housing. That dome you're looking at is probably $2,500 to $3,000. So it's a. I laugh because that somebody has. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But yeah. So the normal people have not that setup. So, but I love this. This guy was actually really cool. He was a great guy. He actually grew up in Austria next to these people. So that's why he had this personally made for him, which I thought was really, really cool.
Is that a GoPro on top?
That's a GoPro on top, yes. That added into the $30,000, that's the $199. Okay, so this is actually me. I'm sorry about the chicken legs there, but that's who I am. And you have, that's how close I have to be. So when you see me working and you're going to see these images that I took, you know, that's when I say close, that's how close we got to be. And for some strange reason, I just attract animals. I don't know what it is, but they want to come up and say hello to me. It's really quite interesting. I have some amazing stories about why they picked me.
So what's the value of that equipment compared to the other equipment?
This is, that whole setup is about a $10,000 setup. So you got the two strobes. When you shoot wide angle, the flat port is going to be for macro, so it's going to be a flat port. When you're looking at this setup here, you're seeing a dome. That's for wide angle. So then you know that they're shooting wide. And so from here, this is what you're going to see. And that's a Goliath grouper, a small Goliath grouper that we take. This was taken in Jupiter, Florida, where I live. So this is another photographer of mine, a friend of mine. And again, I wanted to show you what it's like and how close you really are to these subjects. This is a giant Pacific manta. This is one of my favorite places to go diving. It's called Socorro, Mexico. And I've been there 4 times, and I wish I could go every other week, but I can't. This particular manta probably had somewhere between 16 and 18 foot wingspan. So when you see these, it's pretty amazing. And that's an understatement. If anybody likes photographing birds, I try to think, you know, hey, if you're out there and this 18-foot bird came up, how cool would that be, right? I mean, come on, that would be like, hey, that's what I saw today. An 18-foot pterodactyl came to me. You can see the other one in the background, which is really, really neat. I love this shot. It's really trying to show you again, guys, the 2-strobe setup. It's very, very important where your strobes are. So when your strobes are out there, if they're turned a little in or a little in the wrong direction, you'll get what's called backscatter, and that's the big issue for shooting wide. There are just a long list of issues about shooting wide. So you're dealing with, you know, massive currents, you're dealing with subject matter that you're trying to get in the right position, you're dealing with natural light now, so you're taking in, you have 2 strobes and natural light to compensate for. You have moving subjects, so you have to take that into consideration when you're shooting. So there's just a whole different ball game when you're shooting wide. The challenges are, they're there, and it's really, I'm very proud of. I just couldn't, you know, when I shot macro, I just had a high success rate. But when you shoot wide, it's just a whole nother. I mean, I've done 3, 4, 5 dives and just got nothing because it's just so many variables that have to be right. So you kind of take a beating to start learning to shoot wide. A lot of my students will shoot macro and gain all this confidence and then go, I got it, and go to shoot wide, and they turn right back to macro again. And because it's very, very an interesting way to, you got to know how to dive, and you got to know how to, willing to understand that you have to get close to your subjects.
How close are you on that last
He's right there, so he's in that 2 to 3 foot range. Yeah. So this is an image I just got off of in French Polynesia. I love this image. It's all natural light, so this is a no strobe setup. I turned my strobes off just to pick up on all the natural light that was going on. I just love this because this lighting, I had about a 30-second window of the sun coming up and giving me this lighting. And I'm being pushed away by a really strong current. I'm actually in a channel right here, and I'm swimming like everything I got to just get the shot. And as the sun came up, it just hit the ripples in the water just perfectly to give me this lighting. And as I'm looking at it, I'm getting pulled away, and I had to swim back. I was able to get this image, and then the sun went up, and that was it. And I'm thinking to myself, like, here I am in the smallest place. This is called Rangiroa. It's got a population of about 200 people, and I'm a pretty remote place in the world, and I'm able to get this image, and I was really, really proud of it.
I'm sorry.
No, that's 20 feet of water. This is Bruce. Say hello, Bruce. So this was, I got asked to go on this trip to Guadalupe Island in Mexico and to photograph great whites. So I was very lucky. On the trip that I ended up going on, the boat holds 28, and there were only 13 of us, and 3 of those were crew. So, and in Guadalupe, the water is very cold. It's probably about 67, 65, somewhere in there. So most people go in the cage, and then 20 minutes later, they just want out because it's cold. So I was able to be in the cage from about 8:30 in the morning till about 5 in the afternoon. And I was, being a small frame person, the hole is big enough that I was basically hanging out of the cage the whole time. And I really got some great stuff that I was really proud of. This image here, I love it. What I did was I took the color down on this particular one, so I didn't make it a black and white, and I just toned the color down. And this is my image of where you're scuba diving, and you just have a weird feeling, and you turn around, and this is what, he's just staring at you. So, but I mean, guys, I'm going to tell you honestly, so to get to see a great white is just amazing. I mean, they're so beautiful. They're very, very big, and it's like seeing a living dinosaur, and it's pretty incredible. This here is just on another level of fantastic. So you guys can notice, you see that I'm in this shot, I'm only in about 5 feet of water. You can see what I was telling you about, that I'm shooting at 180 degrees. You can see I'm shooting a fisheye because you can see the curvature in there. But it does not distort your subject matter because, again, you don't have those lines underwater. So I'm about 3 feet away from her. And this was, to me, where I go to bed with the biggest smile I can possibly have on my face because I can't believe I get to see stuff like this. This experience this is the first image out of Socorro, Mexico that they have of humpbacks. They have never gotten humpbacks that were able to come this close. I was told specifically before we went out to this that don't worry about it, you're wasting your time. And I said, that's fine, I don't mind wasting my time. And she came right to me, and it was incredible. That year was the only year that the humpbacks, for some strange reason, wanted to interact with people, and then the next year everybody went swarming back, and nobody got anything. Again, back to normal. So it was a very unique time, and I was so thankful to be there. That's a brand new calf, and it was just, you could actually hear the calf was on the other side. The mom was obviously in between us, and then the baby asked if she could come over, and just came right to me as they came by. It was just an amazing experience. So again, I'm shooting this with the Tokina 10 to 17. I'm shooting at 180 degrees, and this is no strobes.
How fast is that torpedo lens?
I believe 2.8. So here, this is the salt piers in Bonaire. And it's, again, really, really neat. That's what you're looking at is the pier there. And then you just have such beautiful colors there. And I just think, again, I'm trying to show the viewer, you know, you're sitting there and you're looking at that pier and you just don't know what's underneath it. And then this is what's going on right underneath it, which I thought was really, really neat. So again, I do a lot of traveling, and I'm very lucky to get to go really cool places. I love this particular image because it's in my backyard. So this is Jupiter, Florida. We have some amazing diving there. We have lots of turtles. So you have the greens, you have the hawksbill, and you have the loggerheads. This is the small greens. And every time I would see a green turtle, as opposed to like the loggerheads sit under the ledges and they get a lot of crusty corals on them, and they just look like they're just ancient. When you see the green turtles, they are just smooth and their shells are just brilliant. So on this particular image, I really wanted to show off how cool the shell design was. And so that's what you're getting. This is 90 feet down. Yes, sir.
Is this natural light?
No, this is strobes. Yeah, these are 2 strobes. You can actually see, based on my strobe, you can see the shadow that you're getting there from the strobe. And this is where your patience will pay off, where I was just sitting there swimming with this guy, just relaxing and just letting him do his thing. And as I'm sitting there setting it up, I'm saying to myself, if he could just go to the left, that would be just perfect. And I don't know how he heard me, but he just turned to the left and just gave me the perfect angle to get. But again, when you understand that when I took the shot, you know, I'm right here taking it. So he's comfortable enough to have me swimming with him that he's not taking off. And that's one of the most important things that I try to get across to people is, you know, if you relax, it can pay big dividends in what you're doing.
How long did it take you to get comfortable with it?
That's another one. I just think that's an awesome question. In the beginning for me, I told this story last night, but I was talking about where I'm a scuba instructor, so I used to work on the dive boats, and in the morning I would actually go shoot, and I couldn't get close to anything. In the afternoon, I would lead trips where I couldn't have my camera because I was actually working and I was leading people to, and I would be pointing out all the different things that we would have under there. And I noticed when I didn't have my camera, everything would just swim right up to me. You know, I was like, you know, and I self-reflect a lot. And so what I noticed and what I was able to point out to myself was I had no idea how aggressive I was being with my camera, which I thought I wasn't being aggressive at all, but I was actually being much more aggressive, and I was trying to get the shot. And it is something that I've trained myself to just really calm down and just have a good time and let the dive go the way it's going to go, and then just document what you can where you can. And it's really made a huge difference. Are you guys up 5 minutes? Do you want to take a break? Or? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's take 5 minutes. Okay. Okay. So guys, on the break, I actually had some, I love, people came up and I was able to talk to them, kind of get an idea. So let's just stop for a second. Let's talk equipment. And let's talk about some of the things. So I do teach, and I've been around a lot of different cameras. So, you know, it's very easy for me to talk about Olympus, talk about Sony, talk about Canon, Nikon. I'm a pretty easygoing guy. You know, for me, a lot of people talk about, oh, you know, they come into my booth at an art show, and the first thing they'll say is, wow, you must have an amazing camera. And I'm like, thank you for that. So I always use the example, which depends what kind of mood I'm in, of, you know, like, hey, that's like telling a chef you have an amazing oven. So, you know, the camera, guys, is really not that's not the end all. In underwater photography, it's your lenses. Your lens choice is going to make or break you being successful at this. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So let's talk Nikon for a second. You know, you got a Nikon, I think it's the 850 now, an incredible camera. If you have the wrong lens on that camera, I will take, you know, a Sony RX, I think they're up to 4 now, point and shoot camera with the right lens over your Nikon 850. It is critical to doing what you do here is that if you're a Nikon guy and you're like, I'm only going to shoot, you know, my Nikon lens, it's amazing how humbled you'll be when you get that underwater and it's just not performing like you think. I see it all the time. I see people who think, hey, I'm going to spend $20,000 on a photography setup and it's going to fix all my problems. And it just does not. So I try to explain to people, you know, it's the right lens is going to make that camera perform. And with this day and age, you know, you take like an Olympus, I love the Olympus pen systems or the OEM 5 Mark II. You know, these are mirrorless systems. I put a lot of my students into them because, you know, you take like an 850 Nikon and put it in the housing. The thing is a tank. I mean, it's so big. And what ends up happening, you have these little frames or people, you know, that are, you know, not, you know, built like rocks, and this thing becomes heavy and bulky. And I see people on dive boats that they're going diving and they look at me like, I don't want to carry that thing. And I'm looking at them like, I know, I totally understand. And it's not really necessary. You know, if you're getting into the underwater world, you know, the mirrorless systems, I mean, for the price that you can get them and the cost, you know, you can get a camera, a housing, the lens, and a strobe for what you'll pay for just the housing of a, you know, like a 5D Mark IV or something. You know, it's just, it's something where it's not going to make a big difference in the sense of, you know, with a mirrorless system and you put the right lens on that, you're going to get great results. You're going to be very happy. It's a much smaller setup. So, but having the right lens, that's why I was telling you specifically, you know, in my world, that Tokina 10-17, the thing you have going on is that when you take this image and you have that dome, the camera actually sees it right up on the camera because you have what's called a virtual image. So the idea is that with the dome, the subject, even though you're 3 feet away, the camera is seeing it right up on the dome. So if you've ever gone to an aquarium, if you look into the dome, they'll put like sharks and stuff where you can look, because if you look into the rounded part, the shark looks like it's right up on the glass. And then when you look at the flat part, you're like, oh my God, he's 4 feet away. And then you look into the rounded part and he's right up on there. So we call that a virtual image. So the problem is your lens has to be able to focus very close. And that Tokina can focus a ½ inch away, which is just incredible. Most lenses, like the Canon 24 or the Nikon 24, you know, it can only focus 2 inches away. So you have some serious issues. So there's a, yes sir?
Are you using manual focus or?
No, autofocus. Everything else, all my other settings, my strobe settings, my camera settings, those are all manual. But you definitely are going to use, that's why I actually went from a 7D. I used the 7D for 4 to 5 years, and I was very happy with it. And the only reason I went to the 7D Mark II was because of the fact that they had come out with more focal points, and that was, for me, I want every little advantage as I can get. But it's very, very funny how, you know, you have a Tokina lens, which again is not a Canon or a Nikon, but it's just a fantastic lens. And I have a lot of hardcore Nikon Canon guys that just, you know, in the beginning when they're getting into it, they're like, I'm not putting a Tokina, that glass is not going on my camera. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then in the end, they call me back up, and what was the name, what was that, Tokina, what was that? Because they end up having to understand that the lens has so many, you know, there's a green check mark next to everything that you need it to do. And it's, so it's a very, very well-known lens. It's a very, oops, sorry guys. Somebody hit the space for me, I'm sorry. So it is a very, very important part. Your lens selection is going to play a critical role to make your camera perform. So if you have a, yes,
What you're saying about using Dalton, does that apply to the macros as well, or is that?
no, so the difference, and which is kind of funny again, is when you do shoot a crop sensor, you actually get more out of your macro than you would with a full frame. And you know, you're using a flat port, so when you shoot with a flat port, it actually it's kind of like when you're diving with a mask, things look bigger underwater. It's because you're wearing a flat port. So it's the same thing when you're shooting with a macro, the image actually will magnify because you are using a flat port.
And how does that affect your lens selection?
It doesn't really come into play. It's just that if you're shooting like 100 millimeter with a crop sensor, it actually will give you like a 105 to 120. As opposed to when you're shooting that 100 millimeter with that full frame, it's pretty much like an 80 or 90.
Okay, you want close focus anyway, that's why.
Exactly. Yeah, you're good either way. Yes, sir. Guys, I told you a little bit about how lucky I am. And I'm a lucky person. I am ridiculously lucky. This image is one of my just all-time favorites. If you come into my home, it's a small little condo, but this is a 40 by 60 on aluminum in my house. And I love this shot. This is them jumping in the water to me. So we're on a boat, we're looking for dolphins. So 8 hours of schooling around just trying to find dolphins, and all of a sudden the captain's like, dolphins, dolphins, dolphins. And man, I'm telling you, you would have thought he said the boat's on fire. I mean, people are running out. And I mean, this little girl knocked me over. Like, I was like, what was that? And she was like, you know, I was like, oh my God. I was like, I'm not fighting to get in the water here. This is crazy, you know. So they all jump in. I'm the last person to jump in. And I got separated from the group. And I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm going to miss this. This huge pot of dolphins is coming right for the group. Before they get to the group, they just make a hard right and just come right to me. And it was like, I am sitting there, I'm just watching them come, and I'm saying to myself, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I mean, I'm just like, I can't believe it. And literally, as they came, I went under the water, and this guy right here with the prop marks, he went right through my legs, and this was the one image that I got. And it was just awesome. So you have a baby over there that they were protected. You have bottlenose and spotted. It's a really beautiful image. And it was one of those images that I could, you know, to recreate this, it'd take me 10 years probably, if not, who knows. It's really incredible. You know, for me, I really like being in that space of, you know, being at the right place at the right time, and to be able to capture some, you know, all the dolphin images that I see. You know, you always see them jumping out of the water, or, you know, maybe one dolphin underwater, but to catch a pod like this together, it's just I love the motion of it. I love the reflections in the surface. It's just a really beautiful image, and I'm really, really happy I happened to be there.
Where was that taken?
This is in the open ocean in the Bahamas.
Are you shooting in verse mode, or are you single frame? What?
Single frame, yes. You know, it's another, whoever asked that, thank you, by the way, because that's another fantastic point. And I'm going to talk about that if that's okay. So one of the things that I love, guys, I'm a pretty quiet person. I know you find that funny, but when I'm diving, I'm pretty, you know, I don't mind talking, but I'm pretty, my mind is really kind of thinking about what I'm doing, and I just kind of hang out. But I listen to people, and I love when the person comes on the boat and they're telling everybody, oh, I shot 200 pictures on that dive. And I'm like, and they're proud of that. And I'm saying to myself, well, what are you proud of? I don't understand. Like, if you're shooting 200 pictures on a dive, there's no way you're really paying attention. I look up and I say, excuse me, but why don't you just shoot video? I mean, you're just kind of point and shoot. I mean, just let it rip, you know, go for it. You can tell everybody you shot 3,000 images on the dot. I mean, so I'm very controlled. And when I say that, it's because it goes back to my training. When I used to hang out of a helicopter, when we shot film, you know, I had, 28 images on a roll of 220. And if I loaded it perfect, I got 29 images. I mean, and if you guys, anybody in here that was shooting, I know, you just put that film in. If you can get 37 out of a roll of 36, or you can maybe get 38 images. You shot film. You shot, and you couldn't just blast away because you just couldn't. You had to actually make shots work because of the limitation that film gave you. And it's ingrained in me. It's part of how I just can't break out of that cycle. And when I teach, I try to teach people to, take your time and frame and actually look at what you're doing. And shoot, just because you can put an SD card in or a compact flash card and it says you have 1,000 images, it doesn't mean you need to use 1,000 images. It just means that you're lucky enough that this is where we are, that you have the ability to shoot. But when I go on a trip, I'm on a 6-day trip, and I shoot 5 out of those days. I maybe shoot 250 to 350 frames the whole trip. And that's because I'm more selective of what's going on, and I'm trying to compose. I'm taking my time, and when I push that button, I'm pushing it with a purpose, as opposed to just trying to make things happen and just shooting and not really paying attention. And it's something that I really try to push on to. It's very difficult to teach that to new photographers, because they're just like, I don't understand. I have all, their mindset is, I have all these images. Why don't I just take them? Because I mean, if I take 3,000, one of them's got to be good. And I'm like, yeah, that's just not, I don't believe it. It's probably true, but did it come out the way you actually want it? It might come out good, but it did really come out the way you wanted it to. And I'm very much about being specific and taking the time to set up an image and really creating it and really putting the thought into it when I push that shutter. And I'm hoping that you guys see that, I hope. When you look at this, again, I love this shot. This is my first sandbar shark. So there were about 15 sharks around us. The only shots I was ever in the cage for are great whites. In my world, I swim with tiger sharks, I swim with lemon sharks, I swim with all kinds of sharks. And then you have the great whites, and I just haven't gotten to that place yet. So this is a sandbar shark. And again, as for a portrait, I love this image. It's very, very difficult to get close to these guys. They are very skittish. And I literally just separated myself from the whole group of divers and the whole group of sharks, and I just sat there. I was watching him circle the outside because he was very apprehensive. So I put myself on that outside because I watched him where he was going to be, and I just sat there and tried to make myself even smaller than I am. And he just came up and gave me one look, and then turned to me, gave me that, and then swam away. And I just love it because to me it's just a beautiful portrait of a shark. And again, it's 95 feet down, so very, very dark to begin with. So again, I'm making the decision ahead of time, hey, I'm going to shoot with a fast shutter speed, 2/50th of a second, and I'm just going to pop my strobe on the foreground where he is. I'm about 1.5 feet away from him. So I'm just going to nice and easy, just throw some light on him and then let that background just go. And that's exactly what you're seeing there.
Continuous focus or single focus?
Continuous focus.
Does the flash scare them?
That's another great question. And, the flash go off, I don't think they really care. I don't think it really bothers them. I think what people really have a hard time understanding, unfortunately, even to this day, is they think, a shark, and they think, oh, it's going to eat me, and it's like, it doesn't happen. They're ridiculously skittish sharks. All of them are. You know, they're just not in the business of eating people. It's not what they do. They don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, I hope I'm going to find a diver today. You know, I mean, it's just not on their menu. So, do you worry about it? You bet I worry about it, because it's the one time that you don't want to be that person that he decides to just, you know, have a little bite. But for me specifically, you know, guys, I'll tell you right now, it's too dark in here, but I'll tell you, if I see a mouse on the floor coming across this, I'm going to be the first one up on this podium screaming like a little girl. Somebody outside will be like, what are they doing to that little girl in there? I'm scared of everything. I don't like spiders, I don't like snakes, I want no part of it. But when I'm shooting, it's just a different set in my mind. If I have a camera, I'm good. You would never see me in these situations if I didn't have a camera. Yeah, it's not going to happen. So it's just that when I'm shooting, it's just my mindset is just to create. I want to create, and it overpowers the fear that I have. Yes, sir.
You talked about depth of field with macros. This is with the 10 to 17, I take it.
Yes, sir.
And you have a fairly wide depth of field with this lens anyway, right?
Yes, sir.
And it's a beautiful depth of field on the fish here.
Thank
How
you.
long was this fish?
This is about an 8-footer.
Okay, so, and he's only a foot or two away from you on the nose, and his tail's in focus. So what kind of aperture are you using?
Shooting about f11 to f14.
Okay.
So, and that's what's, you know, that's why I was saying to you, when you're shooting macro, that depth of field is really going to come into play. You know, to be able to shoot, you know, if you're going to shoot that f11 with a 100 millimeter, I mean, you've got to be shooting something very small, and you got to be accepting of, you're trying to actually just highlight maybe an eye where you just want it to go all out of focus. But when you're shooting wide, you got that benefit of, you know, I really try to teach, don't go past f11, because when you do that, that depth of field where the lens has the only weakness it has, it can go soft in the corners. So I always try to express to people that it's worth the ISO bump to get yourself above f11 to get those sharp corners with that lens. So this is really cool, guys, because what I'm trying to do here is show you that you can actually photograph underwater vertically. And this is just, to me, was just the perfect spot to do this. So you're taking your setup now, and you're actually turning it, and now you have your two strobes going this way, and you have to kind of readjust your bottom strobe to give you even lighting on the bottom, and basically knock it down, because you're going to be like this, that bottom strobe is going to be so close to the subject, so you're going to dial it down, which means you're going to give less power, because it's so close to the subject. And this is this is a very, very difficult shot to get, but just incredible colors in there. This is in the Coral Sea in Australia, and what an amazing! I mean, to get the chance to see this is really quite amazing. And you know, people talk about the Great Barrier Reef, but the real beauty is when you get on the liveaboards, and that's what's so great about doing a liveaboard, is you're getting away from where everybody else is, and you're in the spots of where the day boats don't come out, and you're not getting thousands of people diving, you know, those reefs all the time. And so this is a very secluded little spot. Yes, sir?
Your strobe settings for that, power settings,
Yes.
how do you do that?
So it's just a matter of just power. You know, you're going to go from, you know, less power to more power. That's all you're dealing with. So when you're looking at this, and again, the way it is, it's inherently that your bottom strobe is going to get kind of kicked in there. So you're just reaching down, and you're just dialing it down, or you bring it up and dial it down, and then. So what I mean is, it's probably shooting at half the power that my top strobe is. But that's the only adjustments that you make. And guys, on strobes, if you are going to ever get into you know, underwater photography, you know, strobes are an important part of your purchase. And pretty much, you know, again, in underwater photography equipment, they make great equipment. I mean, the brands out there are all good brands. It's all good stuff. But the hard part to understand is there are no shortcuts. You know, it's like one thing's very expensive, and if one thing isn't very expensive, that's going to do the same thing. There's a good chance that that thing that's less expensive isn't going to perform like it's supposed to. There's really there's no way. And then when you purchase your gear, like your strobes, you're buying power. So if you buy a strobe and it's more money than the other one, you know, CNC, and then you have Enon, those, and then you have Icolite, those are your 3 brands for strobes. You know, the CNC is what I've been using for years and years, and I really love them. They're very warm, and they give me really nice colors. But there's a high, you know, there's a more expensive one and then a less expensive one. And the only difference between the two is going to be that one has more power than the other. And so I try to explain to people, if you're buying strobes, that's just not the place that you want to save money. Because, and the same thing with the housing, there's another brand out there, it's half the price of all the other ones, and people, you know, tend to want to, oh, I'll go with the half price one, but it's heavier, it's bulkier, and it's not designed for the camera. It is designed for the camera, but it's not really designed specifically for that particular camera. So when you go to use it, the buttons might not be right where you are. The other 3 brands that are aluminum housings, those are designed specifically just for your camera, and every button is going to be right where it's supposed to be. And so when you're looking at a housing and you're like, wow, one's 1,500 or one's 3,000, there's a really good reason why the one's 3,000, and it's going to make a world of difference of when you're shooting to know that the dials and the buttons are going to be where they're supposed to be. So this one here, it's this is in the Sea of Cortez. I'm actually really excited I get to go back here in the summer. So I work for Blue Water Photo. I lead trips for them when I'm not doing art shows during the season for us for art shows. So I travel with them, and then I teach underwater photography aboard the liverboard, which is really awesome because, again, I'm taking somebody who wants to learn. We're actually in the element of being like, okay, this is what you go do, and then you dive it like 5 minutes later, and then we come back up, and I can see exactly what they did. So it's really exciting because I can really take somebody that is new to it and really turn them into, quickly into having good results and being really, really happy. So this is I love this particular image. This one here, I could not get turtles to get next to me. I mean, I'm good at what I do, and I could not get turtles to come next to me. And I came up to the dive master, and I said, I don't understand, what is wrong with your turtles out here? They will not let me get close to them. And he looked at me, and I don't think he understood a word I said, and then he looks at me, and he just finally looks and says, we eat them. And I said, oh, that's probably why. Now I know why they don't want me to get close to them. That's it. So he was explaining to me later on that the fishermen, they're out there for days and days and days, and if they catch them, they're going to eat them. So, which was heartbreaking for me because I think they're just amazing. So this guy, what I did was I saw this scene, and I think it's just this beautiful scene. I mean, I love the waves crashing in there. I love everything about this. And I had to sneak up from behind him, and I got one image, and this is the one image that I got. And after I took it, I just would not look at my camera. I was like, did I get it? Did I get it? Did I get it? I mean, I was like, don't look, because I didn't want to, like, I was in such a good mood. I was like, I think I got it, And so 20 minutes later, I finally looked, and I realized I did get it, and I just really love this image. I really love everything that's going on. I think it's a beautiful scene, even without the turtle, and then the turtle, to me, is just a beautiful added bonus. So this guy here, again, I'm waiting. This is just before I have to get out of the cage. It's the sun's coming down, and I got these beautiful rays coming through here, and that's what I just love about this. The great white experience was just something else, like I said. It's and by the way, guys, I will throw this out there. You don't have to be scuba certified to go on this trip, and it is something where I try to express to people. As I was saying earlier, I'm around sharks all the time, and I kind of, again, was invited on this trip, so I kind of like, oh, that's cool. And I was in Cocos Island in Costa Rica about 2 weeks before I went on this trip, and I saw about a 13 to 14 foot tiger shark underwater. And that is a big shark, and I mean a big shark. And I said to myself, you know, I see sharks all the time. I don't see what this big deal is going to be. I got there, they put me in the water, and a great white came up, and I was like, that tiger shark was a toy. I mean, it was, I try to express to people, you know, you look at sharks, it goes in like you know, the little sharks that you see, they're like little cars going down the highway, like your, you know, VW Beetle, or like a real, like a car that's, you're like, oh, that's a car. And then you get into the bigger sharks and you're like, oh, look, that's a, you know, that's an SUV, that's a bigger truck. And then you get into like a tiger shark, and that's like a Hummer. And you're like, oh my God, look at that Hummer. Who would drive that thing? That's ridiculously, you know, huge. And it's a big truck, and you say, oh my God. And then a great white comes in, and it's the 18-wheeler that just runs over the Hummer like it's nothing. And these are just, I mean, it is just a whole nother level of beautiful. I mean, they are about, I was in a cage that was about 4.5 foot wide, and when the sharks would come underneath the cage, I can see their body from edge to edge. So they're about 4 feet across. That's what's so incredible. I mean, they are just built, and they are just really, really beautiful. And I will tell you guys real quick, because I always try to tell people, I just talk about things that I wish I could, you know, like tomorrow we could all go see these, because it is something that you will never forget. You're on hookah, so that means you're not scuba diving. So you're in the cage and they're feeding you air, so you just have to, that's why you don't need to be scuba certified to go on this trip. So, because you just need to know how to breathe. Right? We're all good? Okay. So, it's amazing. And I'm telling you, when you're in there and you see it coming, your mind is trying to wrap around how amazing it is. Well, I'm watching these guys, and I'm just going to go back and forth so it doesn't leave me. So I'm watching these guys, and I'm saying to myself, I don't get it. Like, you know, I'm saying again, I'm going back in my head, and I'm saying, you know, I just swam with a tiger shark 2 weeks ago, and I don't understand why I can't be swimming with these guys. And they would throw a big tuna head, like I mean a big tuna head, and they throw it out, and what it's called is wrangling. And what that means is they're just trying to get the sharks a little show for you, where when the shark will come up to grab it, they pull it back, and the shark, you know, so you get a little action of them just not swimming. And I'm telling you guys, so they're throwing out this piece of tuna, and I'm saying, these are the laziest sharks. I mean, here just barely moving, and then they're pulling it back, and the shark would just go up, and you'd see him just, you know, fade away. And he'd throw it out again, the shark would just come up, really, and I'm like, oh my God, how could these guys ever kill any? I mean, they're so slow and ridiculous. And then he threw it out again, and there's no shark. So I said to myself, oh, these guys not only lazy, but they just give up so easily. Well, what he was doing was actually figuring out where the guy was throwing it and where he couldn't see. He had gone around the boat and went right into the angle of where he came up, where if you looked, you'd have to look into the sun. And man, he came up and hit that tuna. All I saw was a flash of a shark streaming through the water. And man, when he hit that tuna, it was like a train just smacking into a wall. I mean, and I was like, oh, now I know why I'm in this cage. And I'm not leaving this cage. I mean, it was when they wanted to hit it was to see something like this move as fast as they do, and when they have a purpose, and how smart he was to figure out exactly where he needed to be. That's what he was doing when he was just coming up. He was just looking at what he was actually going to do to make sure he was going to get it, and he got it. It was really incredible to see how smart they were. Oops. Okay guys, so here we're going to talk about where you have natural light coming in through here. And I just think this is just a beautiful wreck scene. And so what I'm doing here, what you can get away with, is you can hand hold, guys. So I'm shooting at a 30th of a second. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm shooting slow enough so that I can pick up the natural light. So when you shoot wide angle underwater, you can shoot from probably a 30th of a second all the way through to 2/50th of a second. So what I'm doing here is I'm dialing down my strobes. So again, so I don't get a lot of power from them. I want to just pop the light in my foreground. And then I'm shooting at a very low or very slow shutter speed. And that's so that I can pick up on that background natural light. So when you look at this, my strobes are only going this 2 feet here, and then the rest of that scene is just beautiful natural light coming through there.
How deep, Craig?
This is about 60 feet down. And so I love it. You get in that wreck, and then this is like the cargo hold right here, and then it's just got such beautiful coral cups that I want to show you, obviously. And then I love just like, it's just a beautiful, it's like this little, I did not do that. This is like, I feel like I'm in a fish tank, like where you look at the fish tanks and they have those little wrecks in there, and it's like, it's just this perfect little, I just love everything about this. And I love the Queen Angel. I was waiting for her to come into the frame so I can get some color in there. But I just, again, I love this as just a natural scene of what it's like to be underwater inside a wreck. So as you guys notice about me is I tend to really love to use the sun as my backdrop. And that's something for me that I always do. It's one of those things when you're scuba diving and you're shooting, I always have a presence of where the sun is. I'm constantly paying attention to where I am, to where the sun is, to where my subjects are going to end up. So when you get into stuff like this, now you have to knock down that sun, so now you have to shoot with a faster shutter speed, you have to shoot with a more of like an F20, F18, so you're knocking down that, and then your strobes are just popping in to fill out your foreground. The funny part of this photo, and again, somebody mentioned it, but I'm not going to have you guys all turn around, but on my screen, this image is tack sharp, and it's really more beautiful on my screen because the blues in it are really just stunning. But the funny part about this was, it was kind of like, if you would have seen it 10 minutes before, you guys would be laughing, because I'm swimming around schooling this whole fish to get into the scene where I want them. So I'm swimming like crazy, like trying to get them all up against here so I can use that lighting. And then I finally stopped, and when I stopped, they just started breaking off, and that's how that scene was put together, with a lot of swimming and a lot of where I'm trying to just all get them corralled into one spot so I can get a nice photo.
Is the time of day important for you in these types of shots?
It is, because it's where the sun is going to be. This is just early evening, so it's the last dive of the day. So you get that more dramatic lighting as opposed to that 12, 1 o'clock where it's straight down and doesn't give you very dramatic lighting. And early morning, so my favorite times are going to be early morning or later evenings. I love this again, guys. I always try, we were actually talking about vertical shots, and to me, this is just a wonderful composed vertical shot. These are giant Pacific mantas. It's just I love the shape and the way he's coming in just perfectly for a vertical shot. I just thought it was a really beautiful. The thing about these mantas, you can actually, how they are those dots, that's how you are able to recognize different mantas. So they have the Manta Society, they have a graph of every one. And those bottom markings are how they can tell each manta separate from the other one, which is really kind of cool. The mantas, they have the largest brain, so they're ridiculously smart. And from my own experiences, it's amazing how when you dive in this area, you don't just see the mantas. They actually are entertainment. They will not leave until you leave. So it's just an amazing opportunity to work with these guys. Now, as for me, when you look at my work, there's no Photoshop in here. It's not like I'm taking out scuba divers. When you see my work, I will be the guy that when I'm in a group, I'm always in the back of the group or the front of the group. And then what I'm doing is, when a manta will come in, I call it my sacrificial manta. Because the whole group, what are they going to do? They just swarm onto that manta. And then you have 20 divers, and there's no way of getting an image because you got bubbles everywhere and everybody else. So what I do is I swim away. So I always work on separating myself from the group. And by doing that, I will let them have that first manta, and then I will swim around the corner. And again, I'm in the process of hoping another manta is going to come in. And that's what I'm going for, where when I get the manta, I will get 10, 12 minutes by myself until the group has had enough with the other one, and then they see me, and then they come flying over to join looking at another manta. So it's every time, for me, it's a matter of I'm assessing how do I break away, because you know, you are in these groups and bubbles will, it's not easy to shoot when you have a ton of bubbles coming in, and it makes it extremely difficult to get this kind of stuff that I'm trying to get unless I'm by myself. So this is, I like this one because you're getting here is, this is actually a female trying to entice the two males, which I think is really amazing. To think about where I'm right in their world, and they're just going to go about their business like I'm not even there. And I just think that's amazing to me. You know, again, this isn't a zoo, or this is them in their wild, you know, where they belong, and I'm intruding. And they are just going about their business like I'm not there. And I just thought this was really incredible to get the opportunity to see this. And I'm a huge Dolphins fan. I mean, I don't mean the Miami Dolphins. I mean Dolphins. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm a Giants. I'm sorry. I grew up in New Jersey. Giants. Sorry. What you got?
How far were you from them when you took this?
Same thing, sir. I'm in the 3 to 3 foot range.
Was that natural light on that?
It is.
How deep are you when you're taking that?
This one is about 7 to 8 feet. Yeah, I'm not, I'm very, guys, again, I'm very, very comfortable with my limitations I have on light. And I'm not your Mr. Snorkeler. Like, the farthest I could probably go on a breath is 10 to 12 feet, and that's all I got. But this was amazing. We came up, and you're about to see another image. This is in Cocos Island, Costa Rica. So when you get on the liveaboard, it's a 38-hour trip to get out to Cocos Island.
Oh, wow.
So, again, I try to put it in perspective, but if you were going to go, if you guys like birds, again, if you just happen to like birds, but if you were going to go to your favorite place and you had a 38-hour drive before you got there, you know, it's just like you're so excited, and then you're like, now you're not. And then you're like, can I just get there? And then you're like, oh, we only have another 20 hours. And you're like, please, I just want to get there and go diving. You know, it's a long way of just steaming out there. And but when you do get out there, it was quite amazing. And so you're going to see this is part of we call it a bait. You're going to see in a second, I'm sorry. Okay, so this is one of my favorites. We call this piece Ugly Beautiful. And this is a tiger shark, and this is a very big tiger shark. I will be very honest with you guys. This one is in here specifically to show you what I thought my last image was ever going to be. Okay? So I will tell you that this was a shot that I did not compose, or I didn't, you know, there was no thought process other than, I'm going to die! It was a night dive, which, by the way, if you're ever somewhere and there's 15 people in the group and only 2 people do something, listen to the other 13 people that don't volunteer to do this. This was a night dive in the Bahamas at Tiger Beach where tiger sharks are going to come in, and you cannot see anything at nighttime unless of where you shine your light. And so you can be here, and there's tiger sharks literally right next to you. And as I turned, this guy was screaming in to me, and I took that image, and then he knocked me on off of my knees and onto the ground. And I got to tell you, it definitely wasn't on my fun list of I want to do that again. It was very interesting, and it was one of those times where I was like, you know, I definitely exceeded my comfort level of wanting to shoot. But I love this shot. I really love the history that this shark has had some pretty brutal battles, and just I still find them to be extremely beautiful. That's why we call it Ugly Beautiful, because I just think it's really kind of neat. But yeah, definitely when I took this shot, I was about a ½ inch away, and it was more out of like, I mean, I just thought it was the only protection I had was to go ahead and take this shot. So guys, one of the things I will ask you is, like, when you shoot at nighttime, people always ask me that question. Hey, when you shoot at night, what do you have to do differently in the sense of, you know, hey, are your f-stops? What's your shutter speed? What's your strobe power? So does everybody understand that nothing changes? It's the same as you shoot during the day. Your ISO is going to be 320. Your strobe power is going to be normal. Because again, your strobe, when you shoot during the day, your strobe is dictating your exposure. So it's no different at night. Your strobe, you just can't see, but your strobe and your settings are going to be the same because your strobe is going to dictate your exposure. So that pod of dolphins that you saw, this one just peeled off right underneath me and then just went right down into the sand. And what they're doing is they're scraping along the sand and they're getting out little crabs that are in the sand and they're having a little snack. And so I literally, this is the breaking of the rule of shooting down, where you usually, if you see that I told you about shooting up, but I definitely felt it warranted, it was worth shooting down. So they came in, and as they came in, he went underneath me and he just went straight down and then started playing in the sand, which I thought was so beautiful. So this guy here is again another, I love this image to kind of show you guys where if you aren't really looking, you're going to miss so many things. I mean, talk about camouflage, and I'm not being a one, but everybody can see him, right? Everybody can see this guy, how cool it is. Again, the screen is, it's a lot sharper back there, but his eye is, it's right there. And then you see this is his mouth right here. And he's a big, this is a big fish.
What kind of fish is it?
They're called, I think out here they call them rockfish, or we call them scorpion fish.
They're poisonous, right?
They are. They're the fish that they warn you all the time about. You want to be careful about where you put your hands and stuff like that, because these guys, they camouflage so well. When they swim and they open up, the colors in between their fins are just incredible. It's an extremely colorful fish, but man, do they blend in just incredibly. And this is where I was going to tell you about, this is called, in my world, we call it close or wide angle macro. So it's a matter of where that, I told you guys, that Tokina 10 to 17 can focus so close. So this is where I'm going to zoom into 17. I still have 110 degree angle coverage, which is a lot of coverage, but I'm able to get super close to my subject. But look at the nice school of fish over there. So I'm trying to show you this beautiful macro, but I'm also trying to show you the whole story of what I'm looking at. So that lens just gives you, it created a whole nother category where it was wide angle, and then people were like, well, I can do macro wide angle, which is really kind of neat. That lens is it's an amazing lens where it can do such incredible things. So if you guys look here, there's a manta that's just about to come around the corner over there. And this school of fish was just coming right for me, which I thought was really, really neat. So this is in Cocos Island, and these are hammerheads. And what you're seeing here is, these are the little butterfly fish. And you'll see them all over here. And so what the shark will do, it comes in, we call them cleaning stations. The hammerheads, they'll come in and just park themselves right there, and then in comes all the butterfly fish, and they just start cleaning them. And so I'm sitting here in these rocks, and I'm trying to not breathe, I'm trying not to move. I'm basically buried right here so that I can have them come into the cleaning station and be able to get this image. And it's really neat, guys, because you literally, it's like a conveyor belt. The shark will come in, they all go clean them, and then he goes, and you'll see they'll just be lined up. They'll be one after the other. It's so neat to see. It's one of the most, it's just so cool. But hammerheads are just the most skittish. I mean, when I tell you they want no part of human being, like, I mean, literally, they are so difficult. Cocos Island was one of the most amazing places I've ever been, and it was also one of the most frustrating places I've ever been, because they would just not let you get into that 2 to 3 foot range. I had to really separate myself from the group, and I had to go into my most, mode of just really just waiting it out. I mean, there's just a tremendous amount of patience here of just waiting and waiting and breathing very shallow, and then to the point of where you're just holding your breath as long as you can to be as quiet as you can to let them come in where you know they want to come in. What you're looking for are those butterfly fish. You're looking for those schools, and you know that's where they're going to come in. So I would find my position, and then I would just hide behind a rock and just sit there and wait for them to come in so I can get this shot. So I shot this. This guy is actually touching my dome. Like he's hitting my dome. And so I couldn't get strobes in close enough. So this is shot with just natural light, and I opened up, and again, it's really kind of cool on my screen, but his eye is in focus, his mouth is in focus, and then the rest of him is just out of focus because it was shot it's at about 5.6 f-stop. And it was just so amazing because, again, I'm down there, guys, I dive a lot by myself, and this guy it's so funny. He came around the wreck, and I was just I'm looking at the wreck, and then he just came right into me and was like, hey, what's going on? And then he just was like, literally he kept swimming, and I kept trying to back up, and he just kept coming in, and he was just looking at himself. I thought he looked great. He thought he looked great, I think. It was just such a fun shot, and yeah, just really, really neat. But again, not to keep mentioning, but again, to be able to have a lens that can focus that close, that's what makes it gives me a lot of capabilities to do stuff like that. I call this laughing dolphin, and again, these guys are big, big dolphins. And when I say big dolphins, this is about 11-foot dolphin. They're not small. These are the Pacific bottlenose dolphins, and we thought they were sharks because they were so big. And man, they came flying in. I mean, they were cruising, and he just came. These guys are flying behind him. He just came right up to me. Laughed only at me. I don't know what it was, but he just laughed at me. I don't know. I don't know if I should take it personally or not, but yeah, he just came right up to me. I got the shot, and then they were gone. And there were 10 other photographers behind me, and everybody was like, what the hell was that? I was like, I don't know. It was just incredible how, again, things happen very, very quickly. But I thought that was really adorable. And again, I was able to put the sun right where I wanted it, so you always kind of see that. So this is the kind of stuff, guys, that kind of gets me going. I mean, I love, this is a massive school of fish. And I mean, you're down there and you're in blue water, and then you look out and you just see this cloud of fish that you know is coming for you. And it is massive. I'm talking, there are thousands and thousands of fish in this school. And they just coming in, and when they're coming, they're coming. And if you're in your way, they're just going to go right through you, and it's really amazing. And these are the times that I kind of, really look at how happy I am and how lucky I am to get to see kind of stuff like this. This was something I was very, very lucky to get to go on this trip. It was actually one of my students. I had taught him underwater photography, and him and his son was going on this trip. His son is into sports, and he broke his ankle right before they were going to go on this trip. So he called me up and just said, hey, you want to go to Cocos? And I said, sure, why not? And I was very, very lucky to get to go on this. When you guys look at that other end, you can see how thick the school is. Even, you really kind of get an idea of how many fish we're talking about. And it's, like I said, I hope that when you're the viewer that you kind of get the sense of how cool this really is. So this here is back to my mantas again, and I'm just trying to work with the sun and make this pretty spectacular. And so what you're doing here is you're shooting at 2/50th of a second, f/22, at 320 ISO, so you're talking about a very small aperture, and you're talking about a very fast shutter speed, and then you're talking about where your strobes are doing a lot of work. And again, you're doing that so you can knock down the sun and get that beautiful sun ball, and then the strobes are what's filling in all the shadow area underneath your subject. I just thought that was really, really neat. This kind of cave that I'm actually in a cave, so I'm actually in a closed environment above me, and then I can't help but look at the natural light and think that is so beautiful. And this was the dive master, and I screamed at him to stop, and so he just gave me that look of like, huh? And then I got this shot, and when I showed it to him, he was like, that's awesome. He really loved that shot. I thought it was so beautiful. I'm always looking at light, obviously, and it's very important to me, and it's a big factor in my images. And it's, again, when you're shooting wide angle, there's just those variables that you have. There's so many different scenarios, because of the natural light that you're using. It's, making those adjustments, it's a lot of fun, and it really gives you a lot of opportunity to do some really cool things. So when you're diving, this is about 110 feet down, and when you're shooting this, I'm trying to show you how amazing this is. This is back out where I was telling you, it's in Socorro, Mexico. It's amazing because when you pull up to this dive site, it's just this little pinnacle. Maybe 10 people could fit on this pinnacle sticking out of the water. And you're saying to yourself, like, wow, this is the dive site? That's kind of bizarre. And then when you hit the water, it just goes down to about 350 feet underneath you. But I wanted to show how cool and how you're basically diving these massive walls. And when you look out and you see other divers, they just look like little toys against this wall. It's really quite spectacular. And that's what I was trying to show here. I was trying to give you the idea of what it's like when you dive this particular spot. These are all white tips, and it's really neat, guys. That wall I just showed you, or that was just showed you in the last image, you have these little areas that you just kind of, as you're coming up or as you're going by, you'll just see these little ledges, and then on these little ledges you have all this different stuff. I would peek up and never know what I'm going to see above the ledge, and you look up and then you see all these eyes looking at you, and you're like, hey, how are you? And I just love, again, the colors that are so cool. And then we kind of looked into what's going on here. It's kind of a social thing. They like to be close, I guess, and maybe a little warmth there because it is a little chilly. So just a really cool little shot. There are times I got myself in. Again, you're really fighting currents and you're fighting different things where I kind of get pushed in, and then it would be like a beehive of just sharks going crazy like all around me. I've been into where I'm trying to get shots where there's probably 10 or 15 sharks all huddled together, and then as I get pushed into them, like I said, they just kind of blow out around you, and you're just like, oh my God.
Why is it you don't get any flash reflection in the eyes?
I don't know. That's a good question. It's probably because of the angle that I'm shooting at. Probably because of how far away they are, and again, it's pretty. That's the thing, again, I like about the CNCs. They're nice. It's a soft light. It gives you, a nice kind of a diffused light that I think that's maybe why you're not getting that. See, this is a perfect example, guys, of where, you have these other fish that are in there where they're not, sharks just don't eat everything randomly, like you probably think, but there's lots of life around sharks. They're just part of what they're supposed to eat, and that's what they do. Sorry, I love, if I can get a good vertical shot, I think this is so cool because how deep I am, and then when you look, it actually went all the way, it went up, there's probably about a 50-foot gap in there from where I started with these to where the fish end up, which I thought was just really, really neat. I try to show these pictures because one of the things, guys, if you look at underwater photography, you rarely ever see a vertical. People just They're so trained to just shoot horizontally. It's very rare to see somebody actually shoot vertical. And to me, I think when you get a good vertical shot, I think they're really stunning. And it's just a different look to be able to give your viewer, which I think is important. So this one, what was amazing was after I took the image, I ended up in the middle of that. So they just came, they're basically swirling around me, and I took the image, and then you see like this little gap in here, that's where I ended up. And then all these fish were just swimming around me, and I was saying to myself, like, how many people are having this experience today? You know, I mean, and that's the thing that is just, for me, it's just, it never ends. You know, I leave for Palau in 10 days, and I'm really, really excited about this trip because I hear just such amazing things about it, and I'm just so, every time, guys, that you look at the water, and you could have dove that same site 10 times, 12 times, 8 ball are very slim to none. And we got there just at the end of it, and it was still just incredible, incredible moment to get the opportunity to see this. This is where I try to show you, this is about scale, and this is about where you can just, I hope you get the sense of how graceful these mantas are. It's an experience, again, I wish that everybody could have, because it's amazing. And this is where you try to be a little creative, so you turn your strobes off and then just shoot natural light. And that's what I was trying to do here, was I just thought it would be so cool just to get this beautiful outline of these guys and then just let the sun just pop behind them. So that's just all natural light. That's what that's supposed to do. That's snarky. And yeah, I was trying to get, that's supposed to make you smile. We're almost, I promise, I'm almost done. This is just another angle of that bait ball, so you can get another sense of what it's like. These sharks are just, they're just flying in there, just hitting this bait ball. And I love the dolphins they were just as much of a part of it. But I found so humorous was that the sharks just stayed on their side and the dolphins stayed on their side. I tell you, the fish have no chance. Because the fish, I mean, the dolphins are like, I got this whole side. The sharks are like, I got this whole side. And the poor fish are like, I got nowhere to go. So I did, this shot is for Sport Diver magazine. And what it is we have a guy up in Jupiter where I live, and he hand feeds these sharks. And so he is literally, I'm about a foot away from that shark. I'm shoulder to shoulder with him as he puts his hand out to feed the shark. I was right next to him as that fish is just going into his mouth. This kind of gives you an idea, guys, of what it's like to just be around a school of shark, which is really kind of neat. Yes. Yeah, this is after they feasted, so now they're all in a good mood and everybody's giving me their best looks. Again, just trying to show the motion and some action so it gives you a little bit of understanding of what's going on. These fish are just coming down from the surface and then they just come straight down and then they just school and then like they're on a mission. It's really kind of neat. I think it's just an odd looking shark, but it's when you're there, it's so cool to get to see them and how they interact and how they swim and everything about them. It's a very, very strange looking shark, but I think it's just so amazing. Again, nature to me is, I'm just trying to show people how incredible things are. And this is what I'm looking at. This is a school of hammerheads. It's anywhere between 500 or 600 hammerheads just coming through. I'm sorry guys about all the mantas, I just can't help it. So this is my wife, this is her first shark dive that she ever went on. And I wanted to get a cool image to, so we have this in our home, and it's, I love the shot. It's a lemon shark, and he just wanted to photobomb my wife. You know, he's like, hey, let me in here. And he just gave me the, see, I'll tell you guys, they have personality too. It's incredible. Look at that smile. And again, I'm not joking. This is all real. I don't, you know, this isn't, I don't, you know, it's funny as a photographer, I guess I consider myself a professional photographer, but I don't own Photoshop. I wouldn't know what to do with it. So, you know, Lightroom is my only, so I don't know how to, you know, I can't cut and paste or any of that stuff, so. This is, he's asking me a question here, and I'm trying to figure out what he's asking me. And then I figured out what he was asking me. He was saying, did you get my good side? So he was very demanding. You guys don't understand. They were they wanted to see, what did I do? How did I get this? Did I look right? You can see I'm scratching them, guys. They'll just love, if you pet underneath them, they just sit there and just love, like, when you're playing with them. It's really, it's just such a, again, I get so excited about how lucky I am to get to play with these guys and hang out with them.
Where is this?
This is in La Paz, Mexico. And then you're going to end up with me in the bathtub. This is what happens when I don't go on a trip in a long time. I end up in the bathtub, dreaming of swimming with these guys, and you can see I have my little turtle over there, so I just got personal with you, but anyway. Guys, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Craig, that was great. Thank you. We'll have you pull a couple of tickets here. Okay. All right. Yeah. So this is for a $50 door prize from Hunt's, and the last 4 digits are 0663.
All right.
0663. One more. And if you want to go to Chili's, we'll be at Chili's and we'll have lunch. It's almost the same number. 0644. Oh, very good.
And guys, I gave you the coupons, I do all my work on
Benny,
aluminum.
she'll give you a card to fill out.
So if anybody's ever had, you know, if you've ever wanted to print your work onto aluminum, it's a couple of guys, I've known them, you know, again, I do a lot of aluminum. They're out of Jupiter, Florida. They're just a fantastic bunch of guys. They really know what they're doing. And so we came up with the cards for you guys specifically so you can get 30% off your first order. Their pricing is amazing to begin with, so 30% off is really good. And I can only tell you, again, I only kind of put out things that I believe in because I've experienced. But I was his first customer, and we just do things so differently at their lab because I just expect the best. And so they can do up to a 48 by 72 aluminum piece, or as small as you want as an 8 by 10. But I just wanted to give you guys the opportunity to give you 30% off your first order, and the coupons are in the back if anybody.